For centuries, the medieval knight understood something the modern man has completely lost. Wealth is not built by how much you earn. It is built by what you do with what you earn. In this video, I'm going to show you the 5 principles that knights used through discipline and strategy to protect their territory, and how to apply them today to stop chasing income and start building real wealth. If you reach the end of last month without knowing where your money went, what comes next will change the way you see every financial decision you make. There is an illusion that silently consumes the financial life of an entire generation of men. It does not look like a problem. It looks like success. It is the man in his 30s or 40s, salary above average, financed car that matches his title, apartment in a neighborhood that communicates status, vacation posted on social media twice a year. On the outside, everything seems to be working. On the inside, the bank statement on the last day of the month tells a completely different story. The money came in, the money went out, and what remained is not enough to change anything. This man is not living poorly. He is living on the edge. A medieval knight observing this pattern would not see prosperity. He would see a warrior who consumed all his provisions before winter arrived, convinced with complete sincerity that winter would never come. If that portrait touched something in you, leave a like now and subscribe to MentisModus. What we build here is not weekend motivation. It is mental structure for a lifetime. The problem no one names. The core problem is not that the salary is insufficient. It is that income and wealth are completely different things, and most men treat them as synonyms. Income is what comes in every month. Wealth is what remains, grows, and works for you when you are not working. A man can have high income his entire life and accumulate zero wealth, if he never builds the mental architecture that transforms one into the other. When a man confuses how much he earns with how much he is worth, he begins using consumption as the language of status. The car he drives, the clothes he wears, the vacations he posts, all of it becomes a silent communication to the world that he is successful. But success communicated through consumption is an expensive illusion. It is the difference between a man who looks rich and a man who actually is rich. And that difference, over decades, is catastrophic. The consumer economy was not designed for you to accumulate. It was designed for you to spend, with the minimum possible friction between impulse and purchase. Easy credit that dilutes the perception of real cost. Marketing that does not sell products, it sells identities. Without a clear philosophy around money, every financial decision becomes a new negotiation with the impulse of the moment. There are no internalized rules, no automatic systems, no compass operating in the background. There is only the emotion of circumstance, disguised as conscious choice. What the knight knew that the modern man forgot. A medieval knight thought across multiple time horizons simultaneously. What do I need now? What will I need in winter? What will I need if something unexpected happens? The abundance of summer was not an invitation for unrestricted consumption. It was an opportunity to build reserves. A knight who consumed all his provisions while the days were good did not make it to winter. What the modern world has systematically erased is exactly this sequence: preparation before reward. The apprentice worked before being recognized. The soldier trained before fighting. The young man built before enjoying. The world rewards structure, not intention. Modern culture has completely inverted this, offering immediate rewards for short-term behaviors and creating a generation of men accustomed to enjoying before building, to displaying before owning. Lasting prosperity requires transformation of character. A man can know all the best financial principles and implement none of them, because the obstacle is not lack of knowledge. It is the absence of interior structure to support those decisions when impulse appears with full force. Delayed gratification is not a financial technique. It is a muscle, developed through consistent use or atrophied through disuse. And masculine responsibility here is radical and liberating at the same time. No one is going to build your wealth for you. Prosperity is the consequence of specific behaviors. practiced with consistency over years, by a man who has accepted being the sole agent responsible for his own trajectory. Wealth as a fortress. Real wealth is essentially two things: security and freedom. Security means that a crisis, a layoff, an illness, a recession, does not destroy what you built. It means being able to say no to situations that compromise your values because you are not in financial desperation. Freedom means that your time gradually stops being completely dependent on whoever is willing to pay for it. It means operating on the world instead of merely reacting to it. The knight did not build his fortress to impress neighboring castles. He built it to protect what was his and to have a solid position from which to act with intentionality. Wealth with structure is not a destination. It is a platform. If a knight analyzed the financial structure of your life today, not what you earn, but how you allocate every resource that passes through your hands, would he say you are building a fortress with solid walls and stocked reserves? Or would he say you are decorating the facade of a castle without foundations? Leave your honest answer in the comments. The 5 Knights' Principles for Building Real Wealth. Everything that came before was the diagnosis. What comes now are the 5 concrete principles any man can implement starting today, regardless of how much he currently earns. Principle 1. Pay yourself first. The first destination of your paycheck is not your consumption. It is your reserve. Before paying any bill, before making any purchase, a fixed percentage goes automatically to a separate account, one that is not available for daily use, with no card linked to it. It exists with one single purpose: to accumulate. The reason most men never save is not lack of willpower. It is that they try to save what is left after spending, and what is left is almost always nothing. Consumption naturally expands to fill all available space. The solution is to invert the sequence: first the reserve, then the consumption. Start with 10% if you are building the habit. Move toward 15 to 20 as your discipline grows. And when you receive a raise, the right question is not, "What can I buy now?" The right question is, how much of this raise goes directly to the reserve before I even feel its absence? The honest answer, at least half. The reserve account must have enough friction so that accessing it is not the path of least resistance, ideally a different institution, without an easily accessible app, where a transfer takes at least 1 business day. Principle 2. Assets versus liabilities. An asset puts money in your pocket over time. A liability takes money out of your pocket over time. Most of what men call their net worth is actually a collection of disguised liabilities. A man who finances a $30,000 car over 36 months at 1.5% monthly interest is not paying $30,000. He is paying approximately $51,000. Add insurance, registration, maintenance, and fuel, and you have a liability consuming between $1,000 and $2,000 per month. Over 5 years, that single liability can represent nearly $100,000 that left your net worth and never return. A man who pays $2,000 more per month than necessary on rent is losing $24,000 per year. Capital that, invested consistently for 10 years, would represent over $350,000 of net worth that simply does not exist. Before any significant financial commitment, ask the question a knight would ask: does this strengthen my position or weaken it? Stop evaluating purchases by your ability to afford the monthly payment. Start asking, if I invested that same amount at 8% for the duration of this financing, how much would I have at the end? Principle 3. Compound time. Compound growth over decades is the only force in the financial universe that works for you while you sleep, as long as you have the discipline not to interrupt it. A man who starts investing $1,000 per month at 25, with an average annual return of 8%, will have approximately $3,500,000 by 55. The same man starting at 35, with the same amount and the same return, will have approximately $1,500,000. The difference between starting at 25 and starting at 35 is not 10 years of contributions. It is $2 million that simply do not exist. Every year of delay has a cost that appears on no current statement, but appears with brutal clarity in the future. The real problem is not lack of knowledge about compound interest. It is that modern culture systematically destroys the capacity to think in decades. When a man invests $500 per month and 6 months later sees $3,000 in the account with the market flat, he feels it is not working. He stops, and he silently erases years of future growth he will never recover. The knight who planted in winter did not harvest the following week. He planted anyway, because the logic of the process was more solid than the impatience of the moment. Practical action. If you have no automatic investment configured, open a brokerage account today and set up a recurring transfer for the same day your paycheck arrives. Not the ideal amount. The amount that is real for your situation right now. Principle 4. Deliberate income growth. Expense control is necessary, but it is only half the equation. There is a mathematical ceiling to how much you can cut spending. There is no equivalent ceiling to the value you can generate in the market. The difference between a man who waits for salary growth and a man who builds it is the difference between a vassal waiting for his lord to decide his promotion and a knight who makes his progression inevitable through continuous development of his capability. The market does not reward loyalty or seniority. It rewards the ability to solve specific problems others cannot solve with the same quality. Ask yourself honestly, what is the real value I deliver to the market today, and what would need to be true about me for that value to be significantly greater in 3 years? The combined effect of controlling expenses and growing income is exponentially greater than either lever alone. A man who reduces spending by $2,000 per month and simultaneously increases income by $2,000 per month creates $4,000 of monthly difference going directly into wealth, while his lifestyle remains intact. Over 10 years, that difference invested at 8% represents approximately $700,000 of additional net worth. This is not theory. It is mathematics. Principle 5. Capital protection. Building capital is a slow, consistent process that requires years of discipline. Destroying capital is a fast, emotional process that can happen in weeks. That asymmetry is what makes protection just as critical as construction. The 3 most common errors. Investing in opportunities that promise impossible returns. Any opportunity promising above 1% monthly with low risk is lying about the risk or the return, because there is no above-average return without above-average risk. Making investment decisions based on someone else's enthusiasm rather than your own understanding. Never allocate significant capital to anything you cannot fully explain with its real risks to another person. And selling long-term positions during market downturns out of panic. The man who sells at the bottom and buys at the top transforms temporary losses into permanent losses. Capital protection demands a concrete policy. Before any significant capital movement, wait at least 48 hours. Consult someone with more financial experience and document your reasoning in writing, because writing forces a clarity that internal thinking does not require. And finally, build an emergency fund of 6 to 12 months of total expenses in a liquid account that is never touched for investments or consumption. It does not generate return. It generates something more valuable, the ability to not destroy in weeks what was built over years. If this video reached somewhere real inside you, leave a like now. Subscribe if you have not done so yet. Comment below with one concrete action you are going to take in your financial life this week. Not a vague intention, a specific action with a date. And share this with a man you believe needs to hear it. The knight's final lesson. Money reveals character. An impulsive man who receives a large sum does not become prosperous. He becomes the same impulsive man with more resources to waste. A man without structure who receives a raise does not build wealth. He expands consumption until the raise disappears into his lifestyle. On the other hand, a man with built character, genuine discipline, and a vision of decades does not need luck to build prosperity. He builds it regardless of his starting point. because the tool with which he builds is not the size of his paycheck. It is the way he thinks, decides, and acts in relation to every resource that passes through his hands. The objective was never merely to earn money. It was always to become the kind of man capable of sustaining prosperity. That man exists. He can be built within you. And the construction begins now, in the next financial decision you make, with the clarity of someone who understood that income without structure is just noise, and that real wealth is silent, solid, and built one day at a time.